You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Hey guys, welcome back to First of All, a real unfiltered conversation on career, family, relationships, and culture. I'm your host, Minji Chang. I'm an actor, producer, and filmmaker, here to share inspiring stories and to walk through everyday life with you. Hope you're doing well. And I hope you're ready to learn about homeownership. So this week's episode is a little bit different. We've had some fun talks about very lofty, abstract, and esoteric concepts like the law of attraction. We've gotten to talk with our internet boyfriend and talk about dating relationships with James Tang. We're going to get a little practical here because if you've been following along on my journey, y'all know that I've dropped bits and pieces about becoming a homeowner and what a semi-traumatic experience that was for me. So this is an episode that I was so excited to bring my old friend, Ken, to the show to be, a subject matter expert and educate us a bit on something that was like such an interesting milestone experience for me. I basically was just completely unprepared to become a homeowner. And I still feel a lot of imposter syndrome, even though I've been a homeowner for 4 years and I'm looking to invest in other properties. Like real estate is something that I think is really fun, but also still really intimidating. So this is for anybody out there because in our society, at least in the States where I reside, it has become such an interesting conversation because of the wealth disparity and just because of the generational expectations that have changed. And we still aspire for this really big milestone in our lives to like own our own homes. And yet, at least for me, I was so ignorant to the entire process of it. And I'm still trying to honestly learn from what I went through so that I can be better prepared for the next thing and also wonder like how I want to observe it and learn and teach it to my children in the future. So for all intents and purposes and for all the listeners out there who are either homeowner and need someone to commiserate with them, or if you are thinking about it and you're curious about it, intimidated by it, this is why we're here, is to help shed some light and hopefully educate you a little bit and share some of my ridiculous stories so you can learn from my mistakes. That's all. So really excited to bring Ken into the podcast and just a little bit about him before we dive into the episode. Ken is an Oakland native. He's a Bay Area realtor. Focusing on the East Bay area, which is where I grew up. And I went to college there. And he's a senior sales associate with Compass. He has his own team of realtors under the Group at Compass and like oversees a team of 6. So he teaches a lot of people through written content and video newsletters about market trends and listings. And so I subscribe because he's my friend. I support him and watch his career grow so much because he started out flipping houses. And he's had 8 years of experience, and he's sold houses like from everything from like a $600,000 house to $10 million homes. It's insane. And I've just learned a lot by being in his orbit and in his newsletter. And I actually know Ken because we met through my friend Dora. And I know both Ken and Dora through my ex-boyfriend from when I was in my mid-20s. What's up, Jordan? Hope you're doing well. We ended things amicably. He's married and has a family. It's wonderful. But that's how I met Ken and Dora. And they remained my friends. And we've been, social media buds for years at this point. They have a beautiful family. And I've watched Ken's career grow and learned a lot from him. So I just wanted to bring him on the show to help enlighten all of us. So I hope that you guys enjoy this conversation. And I hope that it's educational, inspirational, and cathartic for anybody who needs it. So without further ado, here's my episode on homeownership with my friend Ken. Enjoy!
Yeah. Came in 88 with a dream, also bright-eyed. They knew right away, sink or swim, there's no lifelines. Cutting their teeth on the move, nobody's feeling these
Welcome
shoes.
to First of All, Ken.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, this is like a reunion episode. I think we're fast. I don't know when I last saw you or got to talk to you. I think it's like 10 years, maybe-ish.
Maybe not quite 10 years. I think Dora and I have been dating we've been together for about 10 years. And we saw you somewhere in between there.
Oh, yeah. And I was at your wedding.
Yeah, so it's close though.
Which is, honestly, your wedding was beautiful. Now that it's all flooding back to me, it was such a lovely, lovely party.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. You guys are so sweet. And I know we're here to talk about like home ownership and real estate, but I'm going to weasel that in. I still want to know like the love story. I always try to find out everybody's love story, no matter what the topic is. So I did, I had my spiel, my intro earlier, and I shared how we know each other, which is through Dora and through my ex, Jordan. What's up, Jordan? I don't know I doubt he listens to this.
I still talk to him.
Oh yeah? Is he doing well?
Yeah, he's doing well.
He's a dad now? This is wild.
Yeah.
So crazy. And you're a dad? It's crazy. Yeah. So as you and I share that because like that's a touchstone of like we met and we're friends in our 20s, and that was definitely like a different time, right? I think it was like we're all getting situated.
So much fun and carefree.
How would you describe it, Ken? Like I actually would love to hear from your side, like when we all hung out and we're friends, like what do you say our origin story is, if you care to share? Sorry,
I disconnected my mic for a second.
Oh, no worries.
Can you repeat that?
I'm curious if you are open to sharing your perspective. Like, what's your version of our origin story of that time in our lives when you started dating Dora? We're taking like snowboarding trips and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean that's basically how we met. Is kind of same circle of friends, and I think I knew like Tim or someone in that circle, and circles overlap, and
Newbies
we did
come
a lot.
Into the circle.
Yeah, we did a lot together.
That was a really golden time.
Yeah,
good memories, good times
for sure.
Since that time is like when I think a lot of our respective lives were in our mid and late 20s, and like figuring out careers. We had several friends who were like in the medical field. They're all like doing their med school stuff and all that. Mm-hmm. And what the heck was I doing? That wasn't even mid. We were in like, early mid 20s. What were you always like interested in real estate? I'm very curious about this origin story because I've only like seen your ascent, if you will, and been like on the sidelines watching you become this badass realtor. When did you become interested? When was that? How did that become a thing? If you can just get to know Ken.
I'm really bad with dates.
Okay.
I think now I'm in my 9th year of real estate sales. So I've been licensed this is my 9th year. But before that, I think this is like after the economy crash and I wasn't really doing anything. Mm-hmm. I was out of college and a family friend was like, hey, I'm raising a fund. We're going to flip some houses. And she's like, why don't you just come along and learn with me? Wow. And literally like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything else at the time. And I'm just like, okay, I'll just, she just like calls me whenever she has meetings with contractors. And so I slowly got more and more involved. And then after a few houses, I got more involved. And so we raised a second fund. And where at this point I was like actively involved managing projects and stuff. So very, very hands-on. And I think we went on for like another 2 years or so. And, the market was kind of iffy at the time. Mm-hmm. And she had been a real estate agent for, I don't know, like a decade now at that point. And she's like, okay, I'm kind of done with real estate. Why don't you get your license and you can sell our projects? Oh. And so I became the listing agent of our last 2 or 3 projects. And then, we shut our fund down. We did very, very well for investors. And then from there, I just kind of became an agent.
So it's a very like organic growth process, it sounds like.
Yeah. And like the last couple of projects that we sold, of course, it's like, as a new agent, you can only dream of selling these like beautifully remodeled properties. And like, you get all this attention, you get eyeballs on your listings. It looks good. Uh-huh. And, that leads to more business. Yeah,
for sure. Especially, I feel like, I'll say this, why I'm so interested in this topic and making a whole episode out of it is that like in another world, I mentioned this to you earlier, like I think I would have really liked being a realtor or working in real estate because I don't know if I'm a Cancer, I say,
me too.
This you are? Oh,
I
am. Ken, we're Cancer soulmates. I love it. Oh, I love it. But we're very big homebodies, like home and like, our security and like a very like there's the renegades of the zodiac, if you will. There's a lot of people that, you know, care about luxury and all that. And there's not, you know, you can also love security and luxury. It does not exclusive, but our signs, if you believe in that stuff and subscribe, we're very like, we care a lot about the environment in which we're at. We care about like, we're more likely to like nest and care about our home situation. And I always really cared about anybody else's home situation because your environment is so influential on like your well-being, like your happiness in life. So I've always just been curious and like into homes and even office spaces, like anywhere you spend a good amount of time. Yeah. Even commercial spaces like cafes. I love all of it because I'm so like, it's the aesthetic part with design, but it's also just like, what's the vibe here and how do you create that?
How you feel when you're there, right?
Yeah. Oh, God, this is so fun.
I actually never knew that about cancers, but it's so true because I'm totally a homebody.
Yeah. Home's got to be good. Yeah, it's kind of like an integral part of our nature, supposedly. We're discovering new layers. That's so cool. So when you were like, was it ever kind of like in your, it doesn't sound like it was like in your kind of like life vision, I guess, originally?
No.
Maybe in like college
not at all.
Okay.
I mean,
what was it?
I think everyone has some sort of intrigue about real estate because, you know, it's all around you and people always talk about it. But I went to college thinking that I would be in finance. Like, you know, Wall Street or wealth management or something like that. But of course, I graduated in 2007 and
special times.
The market just completely collapsed. And, you know, that you just kind of have to change what you want to do.
And have to adapt.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So that's so interesting. And so you basically just like took an opportunity that was presented to you and ran with it. Yeah. Which is dope.
Beats sitting at home at the time doing nothing. Well, not doing nothing, but like, you know, nothing that like excited me.
Right. So did it engage you when you first like got into the scene? Because I think here's the other reason why like I love talking about real estate or just love for you to like educate me further in like your universe. I think to a lot of people in the outside world, and I don't know if you felt this way, but it's really intimidating. You know what I mean? It's very like, we know it because like you said, we're immersed in it. There's always signs and like we know like the places that we are walking into and sitting in and renting or whatever, that there's whole like ecosystem of how it exists. Yeah. But I think for those who are not familiar, especially like young adults and even adults our age, there's still adults that are still really intimidated by it and don't understand how it really works completely. And it's because it's such a personal part of our lives and it's a lot of money. Yeah. All those things involved, it can be intimidating. So I'm curious, like once you like enter that space, did you feel like it was like a good fit? Because if you're already interested in finance, it sounded like you would be.
Yeah. I mean, explaining, learning it first of all, I don't think it's too difficult. At least for me, it wasn't because finance background, but, we're fortunate enough that my parents, they own their own home. And so like that was just like a natural thing that like you had to buy a home, you know, that's part of the life process. You buy a home. Right. But learning it and then, you know, explaining to clients, it honestly shouldn't be intimidating. It's at the end of the day, like buying a home can be very simplistic. Right. It's all the details that whether you care about them or not, you know, the contractual stuff and whatever.
Got it. I mean, those are big words, though. That I think maybe the contractual stuff, anything that goes into like contingencies and your, you know, the escrow and like all that stuff. Like again, I can tell you stories, man, and we'll get to that. But I think that's great, and so I think that's why it's like you fit that arena well because it didn't like sway you, and it's sometimes something intimidating can be the thing that attracts people to. They're like, oh, this is challenging. Like, let me get into it and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How would you explain it? Do you find like, now this is turning into an interview, me grilling Ken. When you became a realtor and you're starting to work with clients, like I'm wondering from your data collection of your work, are people well-versed? Do they come to you knowing what the hell they're talking about? Or are they mainly like in the middle or like you have to educate them?
I think, nowadays, like there's so much information out there that, especially like, being, I guess the end of a millennial, we're so into tech and, everyone's good at gathering information. So I'd say that the vast majority of the people I work with are around the same age group, and they've done a ton of research in advance.
Nice.
Of course, there are ones that are, more experienced. They're buying their second or third home. And then there are the other ones who are like, I don't know a single thing, explain everything to me. And so they're all across the board. But information is so widely available now that everyone comes into it with at least some sort of knowledge, whether it's right or wrong. They know something, or they heard from an uncle or an aunt or, whatever.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad people are doing their homework. And I do think it's kind of like a separate group that's like, if you're in a place to like buy property, that it is different. That like, again, I was like the perpetual renter. So that's why I think it's very funny to me when I look back on like how all my life has played out. And I'm now sitting in a condo that I own. I was not aiming for that. I was not really thinking about that. I was really just in a perpetual student lifestyle of like hopping around from renting apartments. So I think that was like not my barrier of entry, just like I felt like it was really abrupt when I suddenly had to start thinking of all these things. And funnily that you mentioned, because of like how you grew up with your parents owning a house, that you just expected to buy one. And I think deep down I kind of did too, yet I had no understanding of how it actually worked. So when I came upon it, I was like, what?
What made you, you said you're always renting, but like you were always like hustling. You're always doing something.
Yeah.
And you moved from the Bay Area to LA, but what made you decide to like, okay, I'm going to buy a home now?
Well, funny, see how that came upon me. It was crisis mode with my parents, because they, for a number of reasons, they had our house in the Bay Area in Pleasanton, and they sold it. My dad sold it like we had a lot of options. This is the interesting thing. We can go into so many different chapters and segues or what do you call it? Tangents, because my dad, like, we could have rented it. There's a lot of different things, refinanced it, all this stuff. But he decided to sell it. I don't think at the best time, but we had this money, and then like money, what I'm also realizing, this is a whole other episode that I've done, is just money is such an emotional thing. It's deeply psychological and deeply emotional, right? So like how people shop and how they spend money and make these really big decisions, they're not always made with like a totally sound logical mind. A lot of times we'll make these decisions really like emotionally, because you're like worried about the economy, or you're scared about your kid's future, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, my parents like sold a house. Well, we didn't think it was the best at the kids. We didn't think it was the best idea, but that was their decision. And they're like, okay, we have this money from this house. They were like trying to figure out, should we move to Korea? Like they're figuring out all these like very lofty ideas of their future in retiring, which they weren't even ready to retire. Anyway, it was not a good time. Like, we're sort of like, why are you selling this house? But they sold it, and then they're like, okay, we need to do something with the money. And I was the only child of my three, I have two brothers. I was the only one that was situated in some place for a long period of time. My brothers were also like in transition. They're like, well, I don't know if we're going to stay in California. And my little brother's in the military, like all this stuff. So I was like, all right, I guess it's me. And so I wanted to help my parents too. So I like, jumped in, and I was like, I guess I'll get a condo. Like, okay. And then that was like, we hit the ground running. And my mom's a very action-oriented person. So she was like kind of rushing things per se. Like, I don't know if rushing per se, but like she was just like, let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
And then my dad was like, let's think about all the options and lay them all. And it was so opposing energies. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, you guys, but all right. And so I just kind of went with that very chaotic flow. And that's how I became a homeowner.
Hey, everyone has a different story. It works.
Yeah, we'll say, if you want to say that it worked, Ken, I will go with that.
How long have you been in your place now?
4.5, almost 5 years.
Good experience?
Mostly. I mean, I just like, no, well, yeah. It's called, I'm writing about it. It's really common. I had a lot of drama with my HOA.
Yeah.
And,
HOAs are not fun.
Yeah. And my dad had said that, but me being my rebels, I like didn't listen to him. And also houses were so expensive in LA that, again, all these different things I was learning in real time is that, okay, we have this much money. We have X amount of money to put as a down payment. But realizing I was learning like, okay, you need to have at least this much money if you want to get a piece of property worth this much, right? And in California, our real estate is ridiculously high.
Yeah.
So your down payment has to be very, very big to be like whatever, 10% of the value of the home to be even competitive, even to be considered. So I was learning very fast that I was like, oh, we don't have enough cash to like get a house, which was originally the dream. And we had to settle a little bit. Which I'm not upset about, but my parents had their opinions, and one of the issues was like, no HOAs. HOAs are.
I think that's just an old school like way of thinking.
Is it? Okay, please, please enlighten me.
I think so. Just like I think that maybe the older generation is just like, oh, that's a waste of money or whatever. But you know, it comes with its advantages. I mean, I'm not a lover of HOAs either, but. You know, especially for someone who's younger, like not having to do any maintenance is pretty nice.
Right? It's basically like you're renting. Like
but you're just taking care of, you know, your unit, and everything else is someone else's problem.
Can you explain it to our younger uneducated? Because I'm telling you, not that long ago, I was the complete like, what the hell is an HOA? I had heard of this thing before, and honestly, and a lot of negative vibes I got from it. But how would you explain an HOA?
So HOA is like it's called a homeowners association, and they basically set the rules of, if it's like a condo building or a townhouse complex, they set the rules of what you can and cannot do. So if you buy a condo, you only actually own the walls in. So everything inside the walls, you know, the hallways, the common areas, are all owned by the HOA. So you pay your monthly dues, and they maintain it, and you know, they spend the money and do whatever they do, and you know, tell you where you can park and where you can't park and stuff like that.
Trashed hours, all that.
Exactly, yeah. But the idea is that, you know, they keep things running well and help maintain, you know, a certain level of owner occupants, not too many renters in the building, and then, you know, they keep up with all the maintenance, painting and roof and all the things that, you know, you don't have to do.
That's a very lovely, eloquent way to put it. Mine is just like, I say it's like the mini government. They're the little...
It kind of is.
They're the building government. And
they
so, like, make their rules.
There's like, you know, there's like the Swedens, where or Switzerland, Switzerland, neutral.
Yeah.
And then there's like the Russias of the world, or Chinas of the world.
Let me tell you, Ken.
It sounds like you're in one of those.
Well, it was interesting. This is why I have stuff to write about, and I think it's hilarious now. But at the time when I was so confused, this is why I love having you here with this calming energy you have, with this like all-knowing enlightenment you could give to us. It's just like, it was such a stressful experience for me. I was genuinely, like, as you said, I was hustling. So I had a lot going on in my regular life. And then to embark on this thing with like, the stakes were really high for me because I felt responsible for like helping out my parents and like doing right with this money that they're entrusting me with, right? It's not a small amount of money. And making the right decision and being so like clueless in how it went. I felt a lot of pressure and really stressed out. And then so it turned out fine. I got, you know, but like, I'll say the condo that I got, it's beautiful. It's well located. It's, you know, gone up in value quite a bit. Like, I chose well in that regard, but also the developer, there's some legal issues with how the person that made this building, and apparently this is a wider prolific problem in Los Angeles. There's tons of developers that just like make like subpar properties.
Also like litigation for construction defect.
Yeah, like they had a huge lawsuit.
So your HOA has like an obligation to sue the builder.
Yeah.
Every condo building will go through this within that 10-year. There's a 10-year statute of limitations for construction defect claims.
I didn't know that.
And so every new condo building, condos, townhouses, whatever, and sometimes some single family homes, but your HOA will always sue the builder. And so during this time, they'll find out about all the things that the builder did wrong, whether it's like the windows weren't installed properly, or, there's cracks in the roof or the settling in the building. Everyone goes through this. And, during that time, it sucks for people trying to buy the property because most lenders can't lend on the building that's going through litigation. Some can, but so it makes it harder for a buyer to buy, and it makes it harder for a seller to sell. And so during this period of time, property values typically go down in condo buildings with construction defect. But it eventually gets settled for better or worse. There's some times where there's, good builder, they're still in business, they have the money, they pay out the claim, the insurance company pays out the claim, the HOA takes the money and fixes the problem. There's also times where the builder's out of business and there is no money to fix it. And then the condo owner's left holding the bag.
Oh my God. Ken, you just changed my life in the last 90 seconds. I don't know. I didn't know that this was a common thing. This is why I wanted you here. Like when you go through it and you think, I think anything in life, when you think you're the only one and you don't have the context of like, oh, this is how it usually happens, it feels and adds so much more stress and confusion. And like, I'm the bio nerd, right? Like you're the finance guy. And I was like, when I think of the body and how we react to stressful situations, and once it reaches a certain threshold of like stress for whatever reason, because it's like your family, legacy on the line, and you don't make that much money. This is like your entire life savings, whatever. It's a very big deal for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And once your body reaches a certain threshold of stress, you're not able to make like good decisions. Do you know what I'm saying? Like your body's in fight or flight mode. So these things really matter. That education, I think, really matters because you're dealing with something so big in decision and impact, and then like so personal that I think it's so good that, I don't know, you're doing the Lord's work, Ken. I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you. That this is, and we're talking about something that happened 4.5 years ago, but I still like hold against this developer because what I learned from that lawsuit, which happened before I moved in, and all the defects I found in this space, including like the glass. I'm telling you, everything from the blinds he put in the window that are too heavy so that they broke, from the cheapskate like air conditioning units that use, because I'm an environmentalist, if you will, low key, he uses, it was using coolant that's no longer manufactured because it's really bad for the environment. Mm-hmm. And it's hot as balls up here in this part of LA. Like we're pumping AC from 40 units and it's like, terrible coolant that's being pumped into the atmosphere. And I feel guilty every time. I'm like, we're using these old anyway, he was a cheapskate, right? They do everything to like save money in the development side, and then they're flipping it, they're trying to like sell it for the highest bidder. I had like my shower explode on me. The shower door, Ken, the glass. My ex and I were like trying to fix the door because it was installed poorly. And then I found it exploded. The glass door exploded on both of us. We're covered in like cuts and like standing in a pool of glass. It was, if my eyes were open, like I don't even know if like I had a pet, if I had children, like this stuff is terrifying.
That's actually tempered glass is designed to break that way so it doesn't hurt you.
Got it. Yeah. I didn't know, but it's terrified me.
It is scary. It sounds exactly like an explosion.
It exploded. And then when I got it replaced, which I had to then go in my bag and spend money to replace it because I had no shower, right? Like they told me, they're like, this is illegal. The thinness of this glass that this guy installed in this like frameless shower that I had is very pretty, but they're like, this is not legal by the state of California. He should have known this. Any person that installed this should have known this is too thin to not have a frame.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So I have many more stories. I won't bore you with that, but like stuff like that, it was an accumulation. This is again that was in like my 4th year of owning this place. I was just so tired of paying money out of my pocket because I didn't know better. I didn't know what the codes are. And a lot of people out there don't, right? Yeah. So you're dealing with a lot of people that are eagerly trying to do this milestone. They saved up, they worked their butts off, to save that money, sacrificed, luxuries and pleasures to like get to that point. And then when you spend it, you want to spend it on like something good, right? Yeah, something that's going to like be good for your life that you go home to every day, that you sleep in. So again, the Lord's work, Ken.
Unfortunately, it's like, this is one of those things too. And I think that we have clients that take this all different ways, but unfortunately, it's cost of home ownership. Even though it's a condo, you have less maintenance. There are things break. Even new houses have things that break, right? Hopefully you're under warranty or whatever, but things break all the time. And you have to be okay with that going into owning a home.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think I knew conceptually, but then when the bill comes,
but when it happens to you,
like, oh no. Can you? Okay, so I know we're hopping all over the place, but can you? Because I know that we're talking about a lot of things that maybe people out there they're not familiar with because they haven't done that research yet. But I also, because I consider all the 20-something-year-olds that listen to this podcast and that were like, if they were in the same place as me and I was like completely a blank, too much of a blank slate when it came to that. When you as a realtor talk to somebody, like you have a client, how do they even like find you? Like, I'm sure it's a lot of word of mouth, but what should they expect? Like, I'm curious because I didn't know. It was like, okay, I'm going to meet with a real estate agent. And I didn't even fully know. My mom kind of in Korean gave me this brief overview. She's like, oh, she's going to show you some spots and then you're going to choose which one you like, make an offer, go into escrow and close it. She made it so simple, which it is. But I was like, what? And the word and the escrow and the what? Like, what is that? How do you explain that?
I mean, I think back in a long time ago where the market hasn't been so crazy or wasn't so crazy as it is now. Like, yeah, you could, you see a bunch of houses that are on the market and the likelihood is that they were sitting on the market for a while. So there's no one else competing and you see it, you like it, put an offer, you negotiate and it's yours.
Right.
But now it's like, it's a battle out there. It's, you're fighting against all these other people who want that same house. And so going back to your original question, like how people find me or, we do a lot of advertising and stuff. And so people see us online, but by and large, it's through referrals. And it's crazy because a lot of people are kind of end up with their agents kind of like how you did. Parents told them who to use or the younger generation, it's like, hey, you click this button on Redfin or in Zillow and someone calls you and you can see this house and they just kind of work with them by default.
Right.
Which is not necessarily a good thing.
I wanted to get your take on that because there is a convenience factor, right? Oh. Like, okay, if somebody so-and-so like vetted them, quote unquote, which is like, let's be real. What are they really vetting? It's like,
There's no vetting.
I know. Yeah. It's like, I know them. And like, that's cool. I also know and like, I'm going to entrust them with this giant life decision. Yeah. Have you seen that play out? Because I'm curious, like, yeah, I have my like theories, but you're the one that's actually like working with people. And I have heard that I think there are success stories, but there's also a lot of people that are like the convenience factor of just kind of going with whoever's available or like whoever's like, especially with tech. Like, I'm curious how that exists now.
It's that instant gratification of our generation. It's like, oh, you click a button and someone answers or they text you or they'll meet you at this house and you can see it, within an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, there are certainly a lot of good stories. There are a lot of good agents on these platforms. There are certainly bad agents as well.
Right.
I kind of see, finding an agent is like dating. You have to have someone who's knowledgeable in the areas that you're looking. There also has to be like a personality match. Yeah. Not all agents can do the explain everything in detail. Maybe they don't have the patience or that's just not their thing. And so you should take the time and like interview someone, ask them questions.
Date around.
Yeah, exactly. And then decide who you want to work with.
What do you think qualifies? What makes a good agent good and what makes a bad agent bad?
I mean, communication, first of all. It's just like, is this person actually, working for you versus like sending you listing alerts and waiting for you to go open houses? But local knowledge is very, very important. Here in the Bay Area, we only work in the East Bay. And even in the East Bay, there's like, I don't know, 7 or 8 distinct areas that people will specialize in. And so having an agent work in that area that you're looking for specifically can help you a lot because they'll know the neighborhoods better. They'll know the good and bad areas. They'll know the other agents, which honestly is probably most important in this market because they're going to help you get your offer accepted through their relationship.
Can you explain that? Ooh, new topic discovered. So you as a realtor, you're helping them obviously find your client, like based on what they're looking for. Hey, I'm a young professional. I'm not looking for like good schools or anything like that. Versus like, like I have kids. I'm trying to live here for the next 10 years. Like everyone's needs are different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like having that's like one portion of it. But I think the part that was the most, I think that was like intuitively that made sense to me. So I don't think I was like surprised by that part of the process in terms like, okay, they get it. And also I had a real estate agent who did not know LA, just FYI for mine. Oh. She was from Orange County, which is a very,
that's exactly
different, different universe. So in that way, I was educating her. I was like, I'm an actor. I want to work in film. Like here's North Hollywood. We're close to a lot of the studios. Like she didn't know any of that, and she's a very wonderful woman. Personality wise, I think we got along and she was very helpful and earnest, but like you said, I didn't really consider that. Like, oh, she's not that knowledgeable about this area that I'm very serious about wanting to live in. So that's a good thing to point out. But so the next portion I think is like when you like enter into making an offer, that I think that part and like closing the deal and getting a lender, that term, I remember it was said to me and I was like, what does that mean? Because like, again, I've heard the words escrow, mortgage, all those things, interest rates. I've heard those words for years, but I still didn't like connect all the dots. I sound really dumb, FYI. Just fully acknowledging. But I just didn't know in reality what that meant. So can you explain, as if I'm a third grader, because you're really good at this, Ken. I was like, oh, this is why Ken's so great. If you're explaining to somebody like, obviously they've done their homework, but in case they hadn't, when you're trying to get a lender and a mortgage, like how would you explain that?
So when we go through the process with someone like yourself, you're brand new, like you tell us, hey, I don't know anything, start from the beginning with me. And so we would start with, what we would do for you as your agent. And then secondly would be to get you connected with a lender. And we usually have like 2 or 3 lenders that we work closely with, just from experience, ones that could also explain what they do to you very well, because that's their job. And these lenders give you a high probability of success when you write an offer, because it goes back to the relationship thing. It's competitive market. People don't want to see an out of area lender or a lender that has a bad reputation or a lender they don't know. They want to see a lender who they know has done tons of loans in the area, that, once they go through the pre-approval process, that it's a legit pre-approval. So lender is someone who looks at your qualifications and then they analyze all your paperwork, and they tell you how much they're willing to lend you based on, whatever you have down. So you can buy a home with a 0% down if you're a veteran. But 3.5%, 3%, 5%, 10, 20, whatever it is, based on what you have available and what your finances look like, they'll tell you how much you can borrow, and then put that together with your down payment. That's how much you can purchase.
It's amazing. So simple. To me, I was like, why didn't anybody explain this to me beforehand? Like I was upset how like it can be that simple. But even then, I think I just figured I'm fully transparency, how I can be very smart. I'm not saying I'm a dumb person, but in certain areas I can be very dumb.
You just know what you know.
Yeah. And I was not, I wish that I had been more motivated to understand the nuts and bolts earlier. It would have helped me. But like, this is why I'm making these conversations happen, to hopefully inspire people to become more curious and have it be less scary and intimidating like it was for me. I'm not saying everyone's like me, but for those who are, that's why. When I learned like, oh, this is how a mortgage works, like I only have, so we can use big numbers, right? Round numbers, say for $1 million property house, which somebody who's not in California is like, oh my God, the multiple houses. I'm like, you can't even get one house here, babe. Yeah. Not for $1 million. Yeah. But for $1 million, if you're saying like 3% down, you need at least 3% for a down payment. That means you have to have $30,000 cash to like say, this is what I'm good for. let me give you this money, and then will you give me the rest of it in the form of a mortgage payment? But like that's with an interest rate. So like you're not paying back just the mortgage, you're paying mortgage plus your principal plus interest.
Yep.
That's why these rates that the Fed sets and all these like things that I grew up hearing all the time in the news that people discussed around me, suddenly it became very real life applicable.
Yeah.
It's like, like that's a very big difference of like what my monthly payment is. And I was like, oh, this is like what it affects like how my credit card works and da-da-da-da. And that's why credit matters. And all of a sudden everything was like, credit mattered before I got a mortgage, but it mattered so much more because when you're talking about qualifications, that's what it was like suddenly being analyzed.
Yeah.
They're looking like, how reliable and responsible is Minji?
Yeah.
Is she going to
credit
be,
like not like credit card,
right.
credit. It's like, do you have a history of paying things?
Right. Your overall credit, which credit cards impact.
Yeah.
But like your student loans, all that stuff.
Exactly.
Impact. So luckily, I think I was lucky that I had a great credit score. But I'll say like, if we're using me as a real life example, and I'm fine with that, like as a freelancer and as a nonprofit employee, I was not making that much money, frankly, to be a competitive, like to be a desirable candidate for like a homeowner. Like I'll tell you, especially in California and other hotspots, I'm sure like you've seen, like there are people that are investing in property from like out of the country, out of the state, just because they want that property because to them it's like money. It's worth a lot of money.
Stable. Yeah.
Right. And so there are people that I was competing with in the process of me trying to get a condo. I lost a lot of offers, and so they just weren't written in the stars and they weren't meant to be. But it was hard for me because my income was low. And mind you, I was like working in tandem with my parents, and I were trying to buy it together. But there are things like that were like a really big challenge for me to try to get, someone to choose me basically out of the pool of all these other people who are like, I'll give you like $500,000 cash.
Yeah. I mean, your story is like so many first time home buyers, especially younger ones, right? Because you're not 100% established in your career. You haven't had the time to earn and save money like someone who's older has. When we bought our first home, I couldn't even be on the loan. It was
really
Dora was on the loan because as a real estate agent, I'm an independent contractor. I don't have a W-2.
Right.
And I think I had only been working for a little over a year. And like, I did okay, but they couldn't count my income because I didn't have 2 years history. So, and before that we were investing. So that's even worse. There's not enough a track record. So we were limited to what we could buy based on Dora's income only.
Wow.
Thankfully, she was a nurse, and in California they do well. But
right,
I mean, we just qualified in her.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. See, and that's what I think is so like why I think it's important for us to have as many transparent conversations about this, like real life examples, because I think we're vastly undereducated. Not to say that like you said, there's so much info out there, but I think in general, I have a lot of commentary on our school systems, but like we're not set up for success, right? And we're living in a capitalistic society, so we're constantly marketed to spend our money on all kinds of shit that's like not conducive to like, stability and all these other things that we also might like. Because of course, a vacation to Cancun is fun, but if you also have a goal of becoming a homeowner, is that the best way to spend your money like multiple times a year? Going and doing all these things. So this is why I want to like hopefully share my story, because I think there's more to it, and we can take a quick break and come back. But it's just stuff like this is very real, and it's very impacting to our daily quality of life. And so I'm like, I'm becoming that crotchety old woman. I was like, why did anyone tell me this?
I mean, so you're doing a great thing because people are going to hear this and like, oh, I'm in that situation.
Yeah. And you are too. Now we're doing this together. So thank you, Ken. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more info and also Ken's love story. Be right back.
Hey, Brian, did you go to Saturday school as a kid? I sure did. Did you?
Totally.
Well, at our podcast, Saturday School, we don't teach a language, but we pass along the culture that we do know.
And that's Asian American pop culture.
Ada's a journalist, and I'm a professor and film festival programmer.
We've watched a lot of great Asian American movies, and we want you to watch them too. Come listen to us as we look back at the pioneering films that have led us to today.
Hey, First of All fam, if you're a fan of the show and would like to support, consider backing us on Patreon. You can join our Discord community and get different perks by going to patreon.com/firstofallpodcast. If you'd like to support in other ways, you can go check out firstofallpod.com or subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on your favorite platform, or just follow me on Instagram because I love hearing from you. Thank you all so much for the support and enjoy the show.
Till I am slurring my words, I can't believe I made you mine.
And we're back. Ken, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about being on a podcast show talking about real estate?
That's fun.
Great,
This is what I do
right?
every day, so I enjoy it.
I love it. You're natural. You're very helpful. So as we were saying, a lot of us are undereducated. I want to relieve anybody of any shame because I think I take the cake. I was so embarrassed. I was like, why don't I know these things? I'm not a full-fledged adult, and I'm like in my mid-30s. It's very embarrassing.
Honestly, Minji, I think that's better than like some people will go through a real estate transaction and just like, okay, I'll sign whatever you tell me to sign.
I kind of did that though, Ken. Real talk, that's kind of what I did. I felt better about the place that I chose, but essentially, I didn't really read a lot.
That's okay. It's all legal mumbo jumbo.
I know.
That's honestly, that's the truth. Like most of the stuff that comes with buying a home, like it's not that relevant. It's not that serious.
True.
My broker's gonna hate me for saying that.
Ken, what are you doing, man? Not
I
helping
mean, like,
us.
you know, all these contracts are written by an army of lawyers. They know what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
They know. How would you break that down? So like, okay, so let's walk through a simulation, right? Say that I'm your client. We're going to meet. What's the average time that like, I mean, you're in East Bay and you're in the Bay Area, which is like a huge hotspot, but it's also super expensive. So I feel like there are a lot of like limitations of the pool of people that can even afford to buy there. But like, that's my assumption. You tell me if I'm wrong.
No, yes and no. I mean, I think, yes, home prices are very expensive here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have more $1 million homes in the Bay Area than anywhere else in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not, you know, spectacular by any means. But we also have like the tech industry, and that's probably the largest pool of buyers.
Right.
Because, you know, they make good money.
They make the money to be able to buy the
Exactly.
houses. So say that I am a tech mogul. I'm manifesting this. I will be one day.
Yes.
Say I'm a tech mogul and I'm like, I want to buy a house in Oakland. I want to be in the Oakland Hills, you know, get some scenery, maybe close to Berkeley, blah, blah, blah. I come to you and then we sit down, we have a meeting, and then like, what, I just tell you my needs? How would that work when I'm working with you?
Yeah, we talk about, you know, what you want in a home, but I think more importantly, talk about like how this home fits into your life. Like, what are the things that you like to do inside, you know, at home or outside of home? What's your lifestyle like? Do you want to have like walkability? Do you like going on hikes? And then this is how we fit you into a neighborhood. And I think that's most important. And then, of course, we talk about budget and stuff like that, because that also matters in fitting you into a neighborhood.
For sure.
And then it's how narrow of a search you want. Are you like only looking in like one or two neighborhoods, or are you open to exploring in other areas?
Because I'm a drummer that likes hiking. And like, well, I'm saying like specifically my work for real, like I need quiet. Like, and I live in an area near Burbank Airport. And so it's honestly a pain in my butt a lot. But those are things I'm glad that that's a part of the process. And it's helpful for people to think about that going in, because you can say like, oh yeah, I want to live by the ocean, and like in LA for me, it'd be like Playa Vista or whatever, Marina Del Rey, but like that's near LAX.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Like, given your lifestyle? So that would change.
We ask about your job. nowadays we ask whether or not you're going to have to commute back to the office or you're going to be remote forever.
Oh, yeah.
Do you BART to work? Do you have a shuttle? Do you drive? Yeah, there's a lot of these like little factors. And then this is where like the local knowledge comes in, depending on the company that you work for. Maybe one area is a little bit more accessible to you than another area. But for us, like by and large, it comes down to like what neighborhood you want to be in.
Right. For sure. So once we find this, what's the average amount of time? Like, so you've identified the neighborhood. Now you're going to start sending me listings. Like you just email, like, and then I start looking at them, right? That's how it was in LA. Yeah.
So we'll send you listings. And we also through our relationships, we know about like listings that are coming soon, or sometimes people are willing to sell homes off market. And then, the time that it takes from our first meeting to when we find you a house and get into contract really varies. Like sometimes I've had clients where first house we showed, wrote an offer, got it, and that was it. Never looked at another house.
Dang.
And then there's other people who are
what they wanted.
Yeah. And then sometimes, people are more specific. It takes a year or more. Yeah. They're just patient.
Interesting. And they have like a living situation where they're not rushing. They don't have to rush out.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a big like determining factor too, where like, the moms with like the second kid on the way or third kid on the way, those are the ones that are like, I need a house yesterday.
We are overflowing with people
right
here.
Now. There's diapers everywhere. There's toys everywhere. I need out right now.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. So then we find the house. So say that you and I took 5 months. I was a little patient. I wasn't too impatient, but I wanted to go within less than a year.
Yeah.
So then we find a house. The seller loves me because I'm a fabulous tech mogul. And they're like, yes, her. I choose her. Because there's going to be, I'm imagining, what's the average amount of like offers that can go in for like the properties that you
nowadays it's like anywhere from a handful to like 10-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. So then basically in layman's terms, you have potentially like 10 competitors.
Yep.
All wanting to buy this one thing. And then it's up to the seller, right? The seller's like.
Yeah, they're going to pick the best offer for them.
Can I tell you my offer story that I think is really cool?
Yeah.
I learned. This is revealing my toxic masculinity and the patriarchy that's embedded in my brain. When I met when I came to look at my condo now, is a man who I found out later is the developer of the building. But I didn't know that at the time. But like he was selling it very well. He was like telling me all the nice things. It's a beautiful space. He was, it's top floor, corner unit, like beautiful view from the balcony, storage unit, biggest one in the building, all this stuff, right? Uh-huh. And so I was totally enamored by it. And he did a good job. So I was like totally sucking up to him. I was like, oh my God, I like it. He's like, so what do you do? He's getting to know me. It's like, well, I run a nonprofit. In my head, I was like, I don't make that much money, but I run a nonprofit. And I'm doing all this stuff. I'm an actor. I want to work in film. So I was like doing a good job selling myself to him. And then there's a woman there too. And she was like, welcoming, like we're looking at it together. The space itself was kind of a wreck because the girls that lived here were like not clean, but I could see the potential and like all this stuff. It's all gravy. This place, my down payment offer was pretty low. Well, not low. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like that appealing, I guess. You weren't
a tech mogul money yet.
Yeah, I was not tech mogul money or not a Hollywood mogul money yet.
That's all right.
But I actually had to go back to my parents, which was like really, really anxiety ridden for me because I didn't want to ask my parents for more money because they were already like putting a lot of money down. And I knew that this is like their retirement egg, if you will. But then we did it. And then because I already heard through my realtor, I was like, oh, shoot. She's like, there's somebody that's offering half cash for this place. So I already knew because all the places I was looking at, Ken, like they're all disappearing they're like vanishing in my fingers as soon as I was like, okay, let's put it in an offer because I was feeling frantic and time constrained. But they're all vanishing. So I was like, this place is the best of all the places I've seen. I want to make an offer ASAP. I don't want to lose it. But she already came back with the intel like, okay, there's somebody making an all cash offer. I mean, half cash offer, and it's down to you and that person. And I was freaking out. I was like, how the hell am I going to compete with someone that's like offering half cash? Like, I don't have that, nothing close to it. Fast forward, I got it. And I was stunned because I was like, how did I get it? Because in my mind, I was like, there's no way. I found out later when I was in escrow and talking with the seller, they chose me because his wife, I didn't know it was his wife.
Uh-huh.
That was the woman I was talking to. I think I figured she was like his colleague. They were familiar. But I didn't know it was his wife. She liked me. She was like, I really like that girl. She's smart. She's like, this is her home. Yeah. So she fought with her husband to give it to me because he wanted to obviously go with the guy who had half cash. He's like, easy, no brainer. She's like, no, absolutely not. You're selling it to that girl. So clutch, wife came in and I was like, I'm so dumb. I'm part of the problem. I was sucking up to the wrong person. Like, I should have been talking to the wife and I didn't know his wife. But like, anyway, it was a really funny story. And I was like very blown away by that because you never know what will like get you the place, you know? They could just really like your family. I don't know.
I'm a firm believer in that, you know, like people get disappointed when they lose an offer, but I'm a firm believer that you end up in the home that is right for you at that moment. I
think that's a good positive outlook. Did you see, I mean, I'm sure you've had to console clients, right? Who are like really upset.
Yeah. I mean, I try to lay it all out in the beginning. It's like, hey, this market is absolutely brutal. Like you know, if this is not for the faint of heart, this is not like, and our, you know, our market is just so unique. Asking prices are just like irrelevant. Like it might as well be a penny because everything's expected to sell hundreds of thousands of dollars over. So it's like, hey, you can't go into this thinking that I'm paying X percentage over asking. You're going to pay what the home is worth. And so if one home may be worth 10 or 20% over asking, another one may be worth 100% over asking.
It'll go for that.
It totally just screws with your head about like value. Like the whole process is a mess. But it in the beginning, we just, you know, hey, look, we'll give you the best information possible.
Right.
We'll lay the expectations down. And it's one of those things where like sometimes people don't necessarily believe you when you tell them until they experience it themselves. So like, you know, you get a freebie or two and you get to write the offer that you want to write that we know is not going to get accepted. We know if your offer is not going to get accepted. And so, but the experience teaches you something. And then we come back, regroup, and then like, hey, look, we have to approach this from a different way now. Now that you see what's happening. Mm-hmm. And usually it turns out well. Most clients that we work with, we don't write more than 3 or 4 offers for them.
Interesting.
So we're not, when you hear these stories of like people writing 20 or 30 offers or, you know, searching for a year or two and just constantly losing, that's a different issue.
So you think that's a side of a bad realtor? They're not like strategizing well or like not doing their job well? Because you shouldn't have to. It could
be a number of factors. It could be a bad realtor. It could be it could be you as a bad buyer. Like you're just not being realistic.
Got it. Yeah. You're not being flexible to like what reality requires of you.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who are, I'm not going to pay a penny over asking. I'm like, oh, well, you know, I'm sorry. This market is not for you.
Bruh, my dude, my guy, my girl. No. Oh, honey, no. It's not going to work that way.
Yeah.
Wow. How do you deal with someone that difficult? If they're like that, do they eventually just get the picture and they're like, all right, we're out. But like you spend so much energy like writing offers to someone who's not going to be on earth.
I've gotten to this point in my career where like I love to help people. But I've gotten to this point in my career where I have to value my time a certain way. And
good for you.
If someone's not being realistic, you know, I'll give them a chance. But if they're not willing to adapt and change, then, you know, we just, hey, you know, we can refer you to someone else, or you may have to find someone else to help you.
Good for you. I think that's such a smart, it's a good way to preserve your expertise, your value, as like you don't have time to like entertain everybody. Yeah. And especially people who are not going to work with you. They're not being collaborative. It's just like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just it's really, you know, we really do want to help people, but if you're not willing to like see what's in front of you and like listen to our advice, then it's tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be very tough for you.
Right. And they'll get their consequences elsewhere.
Yeah.
Going back to the original simulation that we're in. So we spent our 5 months. The seller chose me. I'm the chosen one, my awesome mogul self. And so now we enter escrow, right?
Yep.
How do you explain escrow?
Escrow is always a tough one.
I know.
So the escrow company. So in some states, depending on where you guys are listening from, in some states they don't use escrow companies. They use like closing attorneys. In California, we use an escrow company and an escrow officer. And so the escrow officer is like a third party. They don't actually deal with anything contractual. They're like the person that is connecting buyer and seller and moving the transaction forward. So, they're going to make sure that to make sure that the property is okay to be transferred from the seller to the new owner, meaning there's no liens, there's no issues with the title, and that once the buyer takes possession, they're not going to have anything come up and unexpected. They'll work with a lender to make sure that the loan gets funded. You put your deposit, your down payment in, and then they'll pay off the seller's existing mortgage or any fees, and then the seller gets their money at the end. That's a very, very short and simple way of explaining it. It probably would take much, much longer. But the very next step once you're in escrow as a buyer is to put your deposit into escrow. So it's typically 3%. It shows the seller that, hey, I have some skin in the game. If I change my mind after I've removed my contingencies, I could lose that deposit. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm putting something at risk.
I'm being very serious right now. I'm going exclusive with you. It's like the dating is stopped. We're committed now.
Yeah.
Or showing commitment, I would imagine. How would you what can you explain contingencies too? Because that was a word that scared me.
So in the Bay Area, how I explain contingencies is that you don't get any. Because most of the offers here are written with no contingencies. Like,
true. Because again, if you don't want it, somebody else does.
Someone else will write it with. So part of our like initial meeting would be like explaining contingencies and why you need to waive them in most scenarios.
Got it. Okay, in a non-Bay Area scenario, what do you say contingencies are?
So there's three main contingencies: loan, appraisal, and inspection. And it's essentially the amount of time that you need to satisfy that particular contingency. So for loan, it's how much time your lender and you need to get your loan approved. For the appraisal is how much time does the lender need to send an appraiser out to issue a valuation on the property. Inspection is how much time you need to do your inspections, home, pest, roof, HOA documents, foundation inspections, all that. And so when you have these timeframes, 10, 12, 20 days, whatever it is, you have that many days to perform whatever tasks you need to perform. While you have these contingencies, your deposit that you've put into escrow in the beginning is, if you change your mind, you can cancel your contract, you get your deposit back. But the moment you've removed all of your contingencies, now that deposit is at risk. If you decide to cancel the contract, then you can lose your deposit.
Got it. Just say bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would say that contingency thing for people that it does apply to, because clearly it doesn't in the Bay Area. There's a lot there that, again, if I had done my homework properly and if I knew the questions that I would have asked, I just kind of really put a lot of full faith into my realtor and the fact that she's somebody that my mom's friend knew. That's literally how we got our realtor from Orange County, who doesn't know LA and this area and whatever. But she does know homes. So, she's not she knows what to do. But yeah, it was interesting, just the lack of information that I had about this lawsuit that I was dealing with or that had been dealt with in this building. Because if I had investigated, I did see it on one of the giant stacks of paper that I signed. And I did see it and I was like, what's this about? What's this lawsuit? Multi-million, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh yeah, that's already resolved. So I just remember that it was very briefly kind of explained, if you want to even call it that.
Yeah.
And then kind of glossed over. And I will say the feeling that I walked away with, I don't think anyone was being malicious about it, but I can say it felt like they all cared about getting their piece of the pie, everyone getting their money with not informing me as the buyer.
Yeah.
There was a lot more there to be discussed. And there's a lot more in that contingency in terms of like, not the appraisal per se, but like people investigating all the details of this property to make sure that it's a good purchase for me, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I was so wounded over and like pissed about was that like I walked away being like, y'all are hella greedy, like vulture ass mother. Like I was so mad at how little my like sanity mattered because once escrow closed, like all hell broke loose in my life. So asking, I wish I had been armed with better questions. I wish I had been more into the fine print. Obviously, like, I totally agree with you. It's a lot of like a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. But in there are things that could like really screw you over if you don't learn like, okay, they have a pest problem, they have mold, they have like a psycho HOA where they're like really fighting over a lot of things and like that'll include your new home that you're buying. Yeah. Those are things to like, I hope people can spend their time to look into. I was very trusting. Like I was kind of like naive. And I was like, oh, they got my back. They did not so fully.
Here's just, and I'll play devil's advocate and I'll talk about both sides. I think that there are certainly really greedy real estate agents out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of good ones, but there are a lot of bad ones who couldn't care less about what happens to you after the deal closes.
Right.
I think a lot of times real estate agents also forget that this is your first time. And while like, you know, I talk about this construction defect litigation, like it's normal, right? Because I see it all the time. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we forget that, oh, this is your first time dealing with it. And we don't, you know, so agents don't take the time to like walk you through it in detail.
Right.
And this really is where, you know, picking your agent matters. Like as a first time home buyer on something like this, like you really should have someone that has the patience who's going to go through all of this with you.
Mm-hmm. I agree. 1,000%. That would have helped. And it sucked because I walked away just trusting people less.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys got your cut and like left me to the wolves. That's how I felt. On the radical responsibility side, could I have asked more questions? Absolutely. Like I was kicking my own butt for sure, being like, why didn't you look into this more? Why did you just trust them? Blah, 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 blah. But those
so
are like
overwhelmed.
Yeah, I was really, really overwhelmed. And I honestly, I'll say even as like this comes to like the young person part, which I do think like a lot of people listening, I don't know how established my listeners are, but like imagine there's going to be a lot of first time buyers out there. Just again, the concept and where I was financially, I was trying to cobble together whatever finances I could to like prove that I pay my bills on time. So I had a great credit score, but my income was like, again, it was more like you, right? Ken, like I didn't have like a really strong case to be like, I'm super financially stable because I had like a salary which was on my side, but it was a lower salary for the type of kind of property I was trying to get. Mm-hmm. And then trying to like add in all my freelance stuff. Like I'm trying to stitch this very like compelling story together with like everything. They're like, do you have additional assets? Do you have additional bank accounts? And I was like, nope, that's it. So it was hard. So, I mean, that was the headspace that I was in trying to like prove myself and then to like then also go into the nitty gritty while also trying to like stay afloat and still keep working throughout this whole process.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot for me to like be like, oh,
was it all worth it in the end?
Well, I now have fabulous research in order to write my show, which it's actually healed my relationship with my dad because not healed it. He's been really against me being in Hollywood, Ken. And like I was like, I want to write about what I've experienced and like in a broader story. And he's like, oh, that's amazing. Yeah, do it. And like suddenly he's like a big advocate of me.
Oh, that's great.
Being in Hollywood. But yeah, I went through some stuff, went through all of this huge fight with my HOA over some of the stuff that was minorly brought up during the contingency thing. Mm-hmm. But then I glossed over it. I didn't think it was a big deal. So I kind of just one ear out the other. And then as soon as escrow closed, for me, I think it was a long escrow. That limbo period was like 60 days, which is longer.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
Yeah, because they had to like get the girls out, then like blah, 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 all this stuff. So I agreed to it. And then, it all hell broke loose as soon as I got the keys, man. It was bad. It was just drama. And then they're like, these people that I was like ultra, ultra chummy with, like, hey, neighbor, like being all Minji about it. I was like, hi, I'm Minji. Like, I'm new, da 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 da. And they're like, yeah, you can't be here. They're like, lecture. I was like so taken aback. And I felt so scared coming home every day.
Oh, man.
Because, the HOA was basically like, I inherited the previous owner's drama, basically. That's the long and short of it.
Oh.
And I had to deal with a lot in my first 6 months. So ask questions.
Hopefully that's all behind you.
Well,
Is that
plot
like scary
twist.
drama?
It wasn't. It felt scary. Again, like what I try to contextualize with everyone is like it feels scary because it's brand new and you don't know what's happening. For now, if that happened to me now after what I've been through, I'd be like, this is annoying, but I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
It would be not a non-issue, but at the time I was terrified and I was really, because they were like surveilling me. They're like issuing fines on me. Like these faceless neighbors of mine were like bullying me. I was like, I'm trying to ask questions to be compliant and y'all are not answering me. You're just sending me fine notices.
Was this all from like the previous owner's stuff?
Yeah, because he had all this drama that he basically ignored. He didn't answer them. It was like a game of chicken. He just didn't answer them because he wasn't living in the building. He was renting it out to these 3 innocent renter girls. So again, this is all the stuff that can happen as a homeowner that I didn't know about. And I was like, oh, my dad was right. This is why he said HOA is terrible. But plot twist, I'm on the HOA board now.
Oh, now you're going to change it from within.
Well, I'm learning. I mean, we could do a whole, this is why I'm trying to write about some of these things because I learned a lot, but this is why I think what you do is so important, Ken, because if you're able to empower somebody and educate them and have the patience and the non-patience where it matters to like get them to act on their own behalf, I think that's such a incredibly important role that you're playing. And you're playing one role of many roles in this whole transaction. But I think for the ones that are like new to it and like not knowing, it's so like, it's a huge deal. Like I would want it to be like a good thing.
It should be a good thing. I mean, like everyone should walk away from it feeling good.
How has it like, because you're a homeowner yourself and then you also like work with all these other buyers, like how has it shaped your life? Because now and also I'm totally doing this to weasel in because I want to know if you want to share how you and Dora fell in love and like became a family now, a beautiful family of 4, I'm here for it. Because this is also like you as a professional, but this is you as a person too. And you as also, you're not only the person like handling transactions, you're the person that's also like living it. You bought a home. Yeah. You have one with your family and we changed so much in our lives. Curious, like that part of your story, if you're open to sharing it.
Yeah. So Dora and I bought our first home the same year that we got married.
Really?
Yeah. We were like, we're just going to do all of this stuff all at the same time. I don't know. So we started looking, we put in one offer, we lost. And then the second offer, we're just like, well, we're getting married soon, so we should have our own place. And if we don't get this offer accepted, we're just gonna rent because we have this wedding in front of us and we should be really focusing on that. I was living in Dublin, saw a house in the same neighborhood. I think the day it came on the market, I went to go see it first. I'm like, hey Dora, we're gonna write an offer. This is actually a pretty common theme in our marriage now. Like we buy and sell other property, and a lot of times it's just, hey, babe, we're gonna buy this. It's just, okay.
Wow, that's so much trust. I love that. That's also like scary as hell, but like, wow.
Second house was this exact same way, but anyways, so I told her to go look. It came on the market on like a Wednesday or Thursday, and they had brokers tour on Thursday. And I'm like, hey, just go stop in and look real quick and see if it's okay. It's like it's a track home, so it's just more of like what the finishes are like and stuff. She's like, oh, I can live here. I'm like, okay. So being an agent, this is where like the things that you do matter. I wrote the offer, had her sign it, I printed it, and I showed up to the end of his broker store with an offer in hand.
Wow.
He's like, it's like super aggressive. He's like, no one's ever done it before. He wouldn't take our offer.
Ken. Oh, he wouldn't?
No, he wouldn't. He's like, the home's been on the market for one day. But I will say that just like your story, it left an impression on him. And so he stayed in contact and, I forgot how many offers they got at the time. It was a good amount, but he stayed in contact and he's like, hey, look, this is where we're at. And he told the seller, he was friends with the seller. He's like, hey, look, this couple really wants this house. And I think he made us like a counter offer and we accepted. And we're like, okay, that's good enough for us.
Wow. Look at you handling business.
Yeah.
I love it. Can we backtrack also?
Yeah.
Because I just also think, and I actually never heard your side of the story. I heard everything from Dora's side because Dora was my original friend. You're quickly thereafter because we were all in the same friend group. But
yeah.
When I understood, this is so not related to real estate, but don't worry, I'll connect the dots.
Yeah.
When you and Dora, you guys were friends
Yep.
first. This is purely love story segment. You guys were friends first, and you guys were friends for a while, right? How many years were you friends before it happened?
I'm so bad at this year thing. It was a while. I mean, we were friends for a while. I mean, like, we can like talk about in like snowboarding years or like trips or something like.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We were friends for at least 4 years, 5 years, maybe.
When did you fall in love with her? How many of those years were you madly in love with our beautiful Dora?
I think at least 2 or 3. Like I just had a strong feeling about her. And she said no to me a lot. So we went out as friends. We went snowboarding a lot together. We went, clubbing together and stuff like that. And so we hung out a lot, but it's always as friends.
Right.
And it's just it's one of those things where like I had been like pursuing her for so long, and at some point I was just like, you know what, I'm kind of done with this. And I was like, at the same time, she's like, you know what am I doing? and she changed her mind.
It was the timing.
It was like exactly the same time that I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. And she's like, oh, you know what, I should give him a chance.
She's like, I love him. It is, to this day, one of my favorite stories because I witnessed it. I was like with you guys. We all went snowboarding together and like I could see and feel the love. I'm telling you, as like the sideline, audience member.
See, I wasn't imagining it.
No.
That's what I thought too.
Ken, you guys were...
See, I was right.
And what I thought was so beautiful was because the friendship was so strong. And I could tell that Dora cared about you. But I also know as a woman and as like a person, like you just don't... It doesn't automatically click, right?
Yeah,
It can take a minute. And I'm a very big believer in like energies and like things happening in the right timing.
Yep.
And I saw the relationship between you guys evolve, over the months, well, in the years, because I was, I knew you guys for like a couple years before that
Yep.
that switch flipped.
Yep.
And it was a really beautiful thing to witness because it was a little bit of its own like divine miracle. Because it was like literally the day that you're like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like I'm done. And Dora was really having this like epiphany of like, I really love, I like Ken a lot and I need to try to give this a shot. It
literally was the same day. It was like on a snowboarding trip.
Nothing brings love out like, freezing cold mountains and like some McDonald's and In-N-Out after, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's the recipe. So since then, I mean, I feel like it was just such a beautiful love story watching you guys like I feel like, Ken, you're just like the happiest person. I feel like you got your woman. You like, we all knew how much you cared about her. And it was really wonderful for like Dora to let you in and like you guys embark on this journey. And it was this drastic shift from you guys being like just buddies to being like madly in love. But I'm curious like to how that fits in like the larger trajectory, because I think this is also a key component. I told you I'd bring it back, right? Yeah. Like when you were making the decision to like get married and have a family and all that stuff, it is said, and I've experienced this in my different serious relationships that like when you talk about money and you make these like plans together, it can be really a big test, right? For like a couple, for partners to be able to like navigate such a big decision. You're committing to like a location, right? You're figuring out all these different lifestyle elements of like prioritizing school and then you have to talk about like, are we going to have kids? How many do you want to have? And that shifts. How did you guys, because that's something I'm curious about. I'm not there yet. I don't have like my life partner yet. How did you guys navigate that? Because I want anyone out there who may be dealing with that to understand like how somebody had to do it. Are you open to sharing that? Like how you and Dora, like,
I don't know if there's much to share. I mean, we kind of, we're kind of on the same page a lot, and you know, it's probably a balance between our personalities. But she was living in Daly City, and I was living in Dublin, and you know, I'm biased. East Bay's better. You know,
with you. I've lived in both areas.
Exactly, the weather's so much nicer.
It is.
And you know, I think eventually she finished school, and she was working in the East Bay anyway, so we decided to buy in East Bay. And same with the family and the kids and stuff. Like, you know, our thought process evolves, but we discuss things a lot. And honestly, I think a lot of it's like spontaneousness, because
really
we moved again. We're in our second house now. But our second house was like, we were not looking for a home. It just happens to be that, you know, I'm in real estate and I constantly look at things and I'm like, oh, this is kind of nice. Let's go look at it. Oh, we can do this and this and this. And ended up being the same thing. She looked in there and it's like, well, I don't see it, but if you say so.
Wow. That's Dora, girl. I love that. I love that about you guys. So she had just had like complete trust in you.
Yeah. Yeah, she does.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that may be that may be the answer to what I'm asking. I think like trust and communication that's the hallmark to any good relationship, right? But
yeah. I mean, I think she knows that I wouldn't lead her down the wrong road. Yeah.
That's so great. I'm so happy because also like the fact that you work in it. I mean, if I was like with somebody that's literally what they live and breathe every day. But I also think that it comes to like you showing Dora how much you care about her and like how much you know her taste, right? Like you know her, who she is. Yeah. And so I don't think you would not lead you guys the wrong way because you wouldn't choose a place that you know would be like completely uncomfortable and unlivable for her.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about what, you know, at that time we had Ellie, our first, and we knew eventually we are going to need more space. I think she was working in San Leandro. So we wanted to move a little closer for her work and my work. And so the conversations were there. We just weren't expecting to make a move.
Got it. So you were preparing before you needed to make any move. So when the move came, you're ready.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's pretty clutch. You guys are such a badass couple, I just have to say. You got a good one. I'm a huge fan of Dora. Like Dora intimidated the crap out of me when we became friends. I like when she opened up and said hi to me. I was like, oh my God, hi. she's not like the most. I'm definitely 80 times louder than her as a person, but she's very definitive as like a woman. She knows what she wants.
Yep.
She's very clear.
Yep.
You got a good one, Ken. I
do. Agree 100%.
I love it. And then congratulations on the second one. I'm so happy for you. The second baby. I think there's some things I trailed off of. I apologize. And so, might have some listeners be like, you didn't conclude your thing, but I'm sorry. I'm trying to respect Ken's time. And I have a few questions that to close out every episode with my guests, if you're open to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So first, before we go into that part, I want to thank you because this was like super calming for me. I'm sure because the previous episodes in this season, I've been like really like flying off the handle, getting all worked up about a lot of things. I think this is the most like Zen episode I've done. So I credit you of like your demeanor, your expertise, and you're such a great listener. So thank you, Ken. You're wonderful. We'll start with our lightning round, and then I'll leave you at the last word on that because that's the last question. But what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for my family.
Your beautiful family.
Just, yeah. I mean, you know, that's who I work for.
Oh, I love it. You're doing a great job. What are you looking forward to?
Vacation.
Where are you going?
We're going to Hawaii.
Yeah. Also, the perk of living in California. Everyone's like, why you guys live in California? It's like, because I can get to Hawaii in a few hours.
In 5 hours.
Thank you.
It's been so long since, I mean, we went recently, but it's been a while since we had like a good long vacation.
Good. I'm glad. What's a long vacation for you?
Like a week or 2.
Hey.
But we're going for a week.
Do it. I'm so glad. I hope you have a blast. Last question is, what do you want to leave with our listeners today? What advice and closing words do you want to share?
If we're talking about home ownership, like it doesn't have to be scary. It's one of those things that you prep yourself for, and over the long run, everything will be fine. Like we're in like this crazy chaotic market, and maybe it's reaching a top, maybe it's not, but over the long run, it'll be fine. That's
so reassuring. And I'm kicking my own butt. You know what? I'm going to take creative liberties here. I'm sorry. I lied. I said that's the last word, but it's not. I want to close this out because we do have people that we are living in this really crazy economic time where I think there is a lot of like wealth disparity. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry. I'm like totally thwarting the end. How do you, I'm asking on behalf of a lot of people, how can we approach this whole real estate thing and this whole home ownership thing, the pressures of that, when a lot of us are like, as millennials and Gen Zs, are not making the kind of money that we may have been hoping for? Yeah. Do you still think that there's ways for that to be attainable? Do you think that that's changing?
I think it is changing, especially in the Bay Area where, I mean, California in general, where everything is just so expensive that, you can have a very, very good career. I mean, like a lot of doctors and lawyers come out of school and they make good money, but they're, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and they can't buy a house.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that I think we can do to help people own homes, but I also truly believe in responsible home ownership. Like I don't think that you should, set out to own a home just to like check off an item off your list.
So true.
I think that, if you're in the right place in the right time, then it makes sense. Then you should do it. Yeah. The last thing you want is, I mean, that's like the last market crash is like, everyone buying homes.
Mm-hmm. It's a changing world. Sure I love that you emphasize that, because I do think if it's just like this check mark thing and like we're scrambling for that because it's something we feel like we're supposed to do, but we're not really ready for it, or it doesn't like genuinely fit our lifestyle, I love that you talked about that, like why you talk with your clients so thoroughly about what is your life, what do you want? Because if it doesn't make sense, you're going to have a very, very big financial obligation to something that's really not right for you.
Yeah.
And so I love that I say that.
A lot of, I think our generation where like yourself, like you're exploring your careers, you're not sure where you're going to settle. That's why a lot of millennials don't buy homes, because they want the freedom. The moment you buy a home, you're kind of, you're stuck a little bit.
Right. That's so true. So we're not closing on like your gratitude. I love that you shared that. So thank you. So this is a very this is the first episode that I've been like, no, we have to talk about it, because I was like, I have the wise Ken here. Like, we have to talk about it. Yeah. I love that you shared that. And I think it's still hopeful. And I think what we're saying as we're now the elder millennials again. Don't do things just because you feel like you have to and you're supposed to, and like be thoughtful about those things. And if you still want to, like, absolutely. I love that you shared the ways that people what things to consider, so that they can be best like equipped for success in that area. Like, so that you can make something that you feel like a purchase that you feel good about.
Yeah.
And also I'm going to hit you up because I'm going to be like, investment properties, do tell. Anyway, that's another conversation.
Anytime.
Ken, it was so great having you here.
Thank you so much. It was great to catch up.
Yeah, seriously. I would love to, my parents, like my family, well, my brother is actually now in the Bay Area, but I don't come up to the Bay that much anymore, but I would still love to see you guys we're like setting up a friend date right now on air. But I would love to see you guys and say hi to the kids. And congratulations on everything you're doing. And also, really, okay, you do get the final word. How can people find you and your work and learn?
Our website is youreastbayhome.com, and then our Instagram handle is the same, at youreastbayhome.
Awesome. Please go check it out, everybody. And yeah, many more listings and closed deals for you.
Thank you.
Wish upon. Thank you, Ken. Thank you guys for tuning in for this week's episode, talking about home ownership and real estate realness with Ken Ur. Thank you, Ken, for being such a great guest. Please go check out his work. Follow along with his newsletters, his video content. Even if you do not reside in the East Bay Area or plan to live there, honestly, it's just really great educational information. It's really helped me, even in Southern California, like just understand and learn real estate and things to keep an eye out for. So we'll have links to all that in the description if you want to follow along. And educate yourselves. I hope that this episode, if anything, just encouraged you to become more aware of the market and how things work so that you can make your decision. You don't have to own a home. You can just rent for life. Like, why not? But the more you know. I'm a shooting star. Thank you to my audio engineer and producer, Marvin Yue. Thank you, and a loving farewell to Anna's son, my producer, who's off having baby number 2. Thank you to Juliana Deere, my social media manager. And if you'd like to support First of All, please go to firstofallpod.com and find links to my Patreon and other links to contribute. Thank you to my Patreon patrons. I love you guys so much. Thank you for your support along this very crazy, wonderful journey. If you'd like to reach out, you can email firstofallpod@gmail.com. You can follow along on Instagram, firstofallpod, and my personal page is at Minji. And please do leave a 5-star review on your platform of choice. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher. It does help. It means a lot to me to see my listeners and fans like leave a little mark of appreciation. It does make the podcast easier to find. I did rank in the top 100 on Good Pods. I think I was like number 50 in mental health podcast, which is amazing. I'm super, super touched and blown away. It's wonderful. So yeah, those reviews do help. So please do leave a 5-star review if you're enjoying the show, and share it with a friend. Honestly, these are supposed to be little tidbits to help inspire people to learn more. So feel free to share it with a friend if you'd like. And thank you to Uzuhan for his song Uzutra for our intro. And our outro this week is my girl Samika. She has a new song called Stumble Home. She has a beautiful voice, such a cool vibe. I've known her since our collaboration LA days, and I'm just so amazed by her work. So I hope that you enjoy it. I will talk to you guys soon next week with our new episode. And in the meantime, you take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon. I love ya. Bye.
Still see the best in me, 'cause I don't know how come I couldn't tell you. I'm all out of breath. I can't believe I made you mine. You're everything I fantasized. Somebody pinch me in my life. I feel something changing tonight. I know you've been waiting to hear me say it. Maybe it's over, no excuse. Now I'm feeling braver. Excuse my behavior when I stumble home to you. When I stumble home to you. I'm so